So beginning of my 9 November, this is interview about, I guess, A-10 life.
Yeah.
For what's the name of your Burt Corp?
Yeah, so my channel name is Burt Corp,
Alright.
based off of the A-10.
Okay.
And yeah, I just wanted to kind of get a story of the guys on the ground. And obviously as a A-10 pilot, that's your primary mission. Yeah, just introduce yourself and
Alright.
what's your name?
Yep. My name's Vince Sherer. My call sign's Snapper. I flew A-10s starting in 04 and finished up about 2015 off and on. Had 3 assignments in the A-10, A model and C model. And many deployments, 3 A-10 deployments, 1 MC-12 deployment, all out of Bagram. So that's kind of the big picture of my Air Force combat experience. I did 20 years, retired in 2020, and now a GS instructor pilot flying T-38s at the pilot instructor training course. So I teach the new T-38 instructors how to be T-38 instructors at Randolph Air Force Base. So manned aircraft pilot still, as a retiree, as a government service civilian, kind of a unicorn job. Get to keep doing what I was doing for more pay while I'm collecting retirement from active duty. So very lucky to be where I'm at. Been a long history for me for flying, over 4,300 hours of flying in Air Force airplanes and counting. So that's a little bit of background. What else? What else do you want to hear about?
Yeah, so I guess kind of take us back to your early Air Force career. What got you into it?
Yeah, okay, so I was born in '78, grew up in the '80s, and then, man, I was just at the right age when Top Gun came out. My brother was a couple years older than me, and it was a pretty impactful movie. We were fired up about flying and going up there and being fighter pilots from watching the Top Gun movie, man. And so we ended up, both of us, getting, because of athletics, not because of academics. I was recruited to play football for the Air Force Academy. I graduated Academy in 2001. I played prep school a year, freshman and sophomore year. I got hurt quite a bit, a lot of injuries playing football, so I never actually got to step on the varsity field, but
Did
had a
those
great
count
time.
in your VA rating?
Oh, all the injuries, yes, that definitely accumulated my VA problems. I've had 8 orthopedic surgeries for various knees, elbows, shoulders, you name it, I've had the injury. So, yeah, I have a high VA rating, and a lot of my time is spent pain managing. I just actually had my spine fused L4, L5 6 months ago, and I'm getting my waiver to fly again. I've been grounded for a little while, but I should be flying again shortly. So, a lot of pain, a lot of broken things, but still got to rock a 20-year flying career. So, so let's see, graduated 2001 Air Force Academy, went to initial flying training in Colorado Springs, where you get your private pilot license. I was at Meadow Lake Airport out there with civilian instructors getting a private license. Took a few months to get that done, then was assigned to Columbus Air Force Base for UPT. That was T-37s. I'm kind of old, they don't have those around anymore. T-37s was what I flew first, then T-38A models, and then IFF after that.
No, UPT, that's upgrade pilot training?
That's undergraduate. Undergraduate. So it is Joe Bag of Donuts off the street. Never flown an airplane before. During my era, they made you go do that introduction to flying training, IFT, where you get your private pilot license with a civilian. So it's not quite Joe Bag of Donuts off the street. In later eras, they dropped that requirement, and so it was really any guy off the street that graduated college and wanted a pilot slot, got a pilot slot, then they go through this training, and it's training a Air Force jet pilot from scratch.
Okay.
In my era, it was the specialized, SUPT, specialized undergraduate pilot training. So there were 4 tracks. In my era, again, a lot of things that I'm going to talk about are specific to when I went through there are kind of ebbs and flows for what people want to be doing and what they choose as their most desirable path. The options for the pathway when I went through were four. There was fighter bombers, there was heavies, there was C-130s, and there was helicopters. So it was 4 tracks in specialized, that's why it was specialized, 4 tracks, undergraduate pilot training. No wings. You go in, first is academics for about 6 weeks. That tends to cut 1 or 2 people out every other class or so. Then you go to second phase, which is flying the T-37 for my era. Now it's T-6s. That will get you into your specialization. So ground school, you got to pass the tests. Then second phase, T-37, and then depending on how you grade out against all of your classmates, you get into your specialization. So fighter bombers is usually the more skilled, highly motivated folks, more naturally gifted pilots, because flying a fast fighter is going to take a little bit more brain power. You got to work faster. People that maybe don't want to do that, maybe they go helicopters, maybe they go heavies. Heavies is a little bit more straightforward flying, not going upside down. You're not doing quick turning and tactical high-speed stuff. It's more of a mobility mindset. And C-130s is kind of a little bit in between, where it's still pretty slow, but they have some tactical stuff once in a while over there. So I ended up getting through to the T-38 track. The T-38 is what you fly for the fighter bomber track. The T-1 is what you flew for the heavy track. The T-41 is what you flew for the C-130 track, and the UH-1 at Fort Rucker, Alabama is where you went if you tracked into helicopters. So I got T-38s, and then assignment night came up. That was phase 3, was those 4 options. So once you finish phase 2 with the T-37, you go into one of those 4. Now phase 3, more people get washed out. People that can't quite make the T-38 track go into T-1s or whatever, or retrack into something that's maybe less challenging if needed. And then, so tracked into T-38s. There's a kind of important bit that defines who I am up to this point. When I was at the Air Force Academy, my brother graduated in '98. He was a Western Athletic Conference champion wrestler. He was a badass athlete. He went to Columbus for pilot training, and he was in a motorcycle accident right after his solo party. And he was drinking and driving at the solo party, didn't make it home, was in got a severe brain injury, was in a coma for 6 months, didn't know if he was going to live or die, but he was done with the Air Force. He was medically discharged, found not in the line of duty, so no more support from Air Force. He was kind of just chucked to the wind after that. So I was a junior at the Air Force Academy when that happened. It was '99, and I graduated in 2001. So at that moment in 1999, it shifted my world. So things came easily to me up to that point. I was pretty nonchalant about stuff. I was pretty cocky. I was not focused. And when that occurred, my best friend in life, my brother, 2 years older than me, you know, my guy that I'm following through going to the academy, he was recruited for wrestling, I was recruited for football, is now unable to walk and talk. And so it was time for me to buckle down and show the world that one of the Sherer boys is going to do it right. So when I got to pilot training, I was most definitely focused, laser focused. I probably have less mental capacity than maybe 80% of the folks out there, but I have more drive than 100% of them because of that laser focus and that tragedy that I felt a couple years prior. And it was very specific and very dedicated laser focus going through pilot training to get the choice that I wanted, and I wanted to fly A-10s. So I did everything in my power to succeed, and it kind of takes someone who's driven to get through, especially with a brain like mine, I think, going through T-38 program. Anyways, I'll try to finish it off here. So through that drive, I get into 38s, I graduate 38s, assignment night comes along. I get A-10s. My flight commander's like, dude, 2 hours ago you were an F-16 pilot, but I made some phone calls and they flopped it for next class. They gave the A-10 from next class over to you because I think you need to fly slower. I'm like, sweet. So maybe some of that burn and fire did something for him to say, I want to get this guy what he wants, because I was very dedicated, even though I might have been a little slower than the rest. I don't know how true that is, but that's just the way I felt about it. So then I went to IFF. That was the worst time of my life. Went to Sherer Air Force Base, T-38B models, dropping BU-33s, little practice bombs off these airplanes, and just had a rough time with it. The instructors were fear, ridicule, and sarcasm style was the mode of the day, so it wasn't very supportive, and so that was a tough time. I did persevere, made it through, hooked a couple of rides, 1 or 2 I think, but I was not happy there. Then finally get to Tucson, Arizona for Davis Mothin's A-10 initial qualification training in the A-10A model, and felt right at home, and really enjoyed that. So that's the build up into becoming the A-10 pilot. That was kind of like the pathway. So where else do we want to go from there?
So, okay, so once you qualify for A-10, where is your first assignment? Like, what was your first squadron?
Yeah, Davis Mothin at that time had 3 units. There was the 357th, the Dragons, 358th, the Lobos. That was a training squadron I went through. I was a Lobo. And then my assignment out of there.
What is Lobo?
A Lobo, it's like a coyote, a lone wolf,
okay,
coyote type of thing. It's a, wolf's head logo is a Lobo. And the 3rd unit at Davis Mothin is the 354th Fighter Squadron, the Bulldogs. I was assigned to the Bulldogs for my first assignment out of A-10 qualification training. Got my mission qualification with the Bulldogs, and we deployed with our squadron commander, Martha McSally. She is the first female squadron commander to go deploy in combat. Great commander, now former Senator McSally from Arizona. Mm-hmm. So she was a good commander, and we got to experience that first deployment. I got to experience that first deployment with her at the helm, and didn't get a lot of combat that time, but I gained a lot of SA. And
what year was that?
This is 04, 05.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was September 04 to like March 05 or something like that. Okay. This is when Bagram was still the only runway, was the old Russian runway from the 80s. It was all messed up. It had cracks in it and stuff. We were operating out of the old Russian tower. There were mines everywhere on the base. There was no east side of the base. It was the plywood huts only. There was no shipping container billets like they had in later years. Like I said, I spent over 2 years of my life there in 4 separate deployments in 2 different airplanes. So my first one was 2004. My last one ended in the middle of 2014. So over a 10-year span, I spent 2 years, 20% of my time living at Bagram, flying airplanes. That first round at Bagram with the 354th, learned a lot about what was going on there, and this is where I recognized right away that our job was done. There was no good reason for us to continue to be there.
And this is 2004.
Yeah, right? When you reference 9/11, because that's the excuse that was given. That was the reason. Hey, we're going to go kick ass. We're never going to let terrorism, touch us again. Meanwhile, we're making dozens more terrorists per strike than ever existed prior to us being there. We are perpetuating the problem by being here. It was clear to me in 2004, 2005. I don't care how you put the lipstick on the pig and say all kinds of great platitudes and great leadership speeches and stuff. It was clear to a young first lieutenant A-10 pilot that this was to pay the contractors that are feeding us at the shallow and that type of thing. So that was frustrating. We're getting rocketed, you know, I'm spending hours and hours supporting guys that are getting chewed up on the ground. I mean, seeing a bunch of stuff. I saw guys get blasted with IEDs down there. We can't do anything about it. We were supporting the Army down there with units that had Afghan National Army embedded. That the comm problem with those guys was unsolvable. Like they would roll up on a convoy. They were A&A embedded, Afghan National Army embedded with big Army, U.S. forces, going out there doing community engagement or whatever they're doing, or a resupply convoy to go to a FOB or something, Forward Operating Base, and they'd get ambushed, and then the A&A would all scatter and mix in with everyone. So even if you had two A-10s up to support, we can't get cleared hot because we don't have friendly battle tracking. All the A&A have scattered to the winds, nobody knows where they are, and they have exited, you know, so there were multiple times where that actually occurred when they were under a firefight and we could not shoot. All we could do is lay down rockets.
So basically there was no way to distinguish between friend or foe, right?
We could not get a positive location for all of our friendly forces, and so...
Oh, so they're friendly forces, and now they are on the...
Yeah.
Population.
We have lost track of the Afghan National Army guys that are trying to now fight off this ambush from insurgents that have attacked them.
So they were basically lone wolf themselves.
They would have an inability to follow the protocol and training for the reaction to an ambush that the U.S. forces use in order to be able to use close air support as a tool.
Yep.
So it tied our hands, and so one of the biggest missions that I remember in my first deployment was, as a lieutenant, I'm doing this exact scenario. They get ambushed, the guys have all scattered to the winds. We're doing low passes for shows of force to try to make them stop shooting RPGs at our Humvees and vehicles with minimal result. We're shooting rockets to make noise, but we're not really hitting anybody.
Would they target you when you'd be going down for the show of force?
They could probably take pot shots at us, but they did not really have capability for any surface to air stuff. They kind of tried to scare us that they would have man-portable surface to air missiles.
That wasn't usually reality.
No, yeah.
So, yeah.
If anybody had an SA-7 in Afghanistan early years out there, it was more clout to have that than it would have been value for the person to use it against an airplane. The batteries were probably all dead. So it was more of a status symbol than a operational useful item for the insurgents. So we probably got ourselves a little bit more concerned about the surface to air threat than we needed to, because the numbers just never bore out to have actual surface to air fires to any substantial level. So it was a permissive environment, but we did continue to execute tactics as if they were able. So we're maintaining our due diligence to not be stupid and keep ourselves safe. But this particular mission on my first deployment, where we can't really bring weapons to bear to stop the fighting because the A&A have kind of intermingled with the bad guys. All I was able to do while lead is doing shows of force and trying to root around down low and keep them occupied and distracted, I go climb high and I start calling in medevac. So I started getting in contact with the helicopters, giving them coordinates, doing rescort, kind of the Sandy role, combat search and rescue stuff. I was a CSAR Sandy guy at the time, so I kind of did my rescort inbound, and so that was an impactful one for me because we did have some casualties on the ground that I was able to use the A-10 platform to get quick turnaround and get some helicopters out there to pull those wounded out. And so that one was memorable for me to be able to do that. Even though I didn't get to go kinetic and shoot anybody to defend those guys, I was able to help them with the medevac.
Yeah, so even though you weren't able to do your primary mission, you're still able to use your presence there to still save lives.
Yeah, and those are the type of things that make me okay with doing what I did. You know, it's don't get me wrong, I am totally okay with what I did out there, but there's some stuff that I have some questions about, some cognitive dissonance. You asked about some of the missions out there. There's a distinction, I'll probably get into a couple more stories into this later, between what I call airborne assassin and close air support. It's not the official term, airborne assassin, but it is like time-sensitive target or high-value target. That whole process and who makes the decision on who gets popped is pretty opaque to the end user, especially in theater when the A-10 guy is out there doing on-call close air support, just running orbits, waiting for something to happen. When it's a troops in contact, that's when the A-10 guy is like, all right, we're defending the 18-year-old with the rifle, let's do this. And if you're, wreaking havoc on the enemy, I mean, that's pretty clean mentally, because this is a battle that you are helping our folks win. But when it becomes the airborne assassin role, when you have a time-sensitive target and nearest friendly to that person whom they've geolocated is 70 clicks away, and you are tasked with ending him and anyone that's near him, that becomes a problem for me. So there's a difference in how the A-10 was employed there, and that kind of parallels, that airborne assassin thing parallels a little bit with the Predator Reaper guys. And so I feel for those guys having to do that day in and day out, months at a time, instead of a 3-month go or a 6-month go. We had usually 3 to 6 month deployments, 6 months for active duty guys. So the Predator Reaper guys are home station, going into a box and controlling that from home, and then going to their wife at night, going to their spouse at night. Kind of a weird thing to mentally go from dropping weapons on a high value target to eating dinner with the family a couple hours later.
Yeah, I think that's something a good thing we can address later, because we're going to talk about that from a veteran perspective, and specifically the guys on the ground. But bringing that up from the pilot's perspective, right? You don't think about pilots having to process that mentally, but just like you said, like that is a real thing, and definitely having that black and white where you're supporting the troops who are, engaged at a specific time, and who the bad guy is and why you have to take them out, versus getting called in to do that air assassin role and not knowing how to process that. So I think that's something we should come back to.
Yeah.
When we.
I probably am rambling and getting off the rails from your initial question.
No. To be honest, I've never heard that air assassin phrase.
It's a term that I kind of have thought about myself. I don't know that I got it from anyone else. I may have, but airborne assassin.
I think we should coin that right now.
Okay.
Just
yeah. Fuck the airborne assassin role. That's stupid. I mean, it's probably a great tool and has done a number of awesome things, but that is one of those things that I'm going to close the loop on that right now and not save for later, since I'm thinking about it. It would be great for me to find out, I'm ignorant to this process, what it would take to recall and get access to my mission reports, my MISREPS from my combat deployments. So the question would be, why are we keeping these things secret if they are? Is it available to declassify, and can we not redact it to the point where it's unintelligible, where you can't really decipher who was hit, why he was hit, so that I can kind of match a value to this versus all I know is I was told by some dude on a radio that came through the ether into my headset in my airplane, go kill this guy. I'm not going to tell you the backstory, but it's time to kill him. We found him, go kill him. And and there's generally a level of collateral damage that goes with those. So that's the stuff that I have to put in my backpack and carry around for life without answered questions. So I am interested in maybe creating a process by which guys like me, I know there's more than just me, can go in, find mission reports, declassify stuff, ask for it, get it declassified, and maybe close the loop and unburden ourselves with the what the fuck problem. Maybe we'll get good answers, maybe we'll get bad answers, and we'll say, we need to change the process and we need to have that not be a thing anymore. Because if we're keeping it secret because it's fucked up, that's a bad reason to keep it secret. If it's embarrassing to the United States because they're doing bad stuff, then that should be put out there as well, and we should knock it off. So that's my thought on the airborne assassin stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to talk about. So the conversation needs to be had.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be thrown underneath the rug.
Yeah, and
it disappeared.
Yeah, disappeared. A lot of the stuff that gets disappeared is under the guise of security and methods and
so
you're really gonna have to.
I mean, one of the first things that you learn when you learn about classification is that nothing is supposed to be classified unless it's absolutely has to be classified. Right? Like there's a threshold, there's a criteria that has to be met.
Yeah.
Where you can't just classify anything, and when it's not pertinent to national security, right, it has to be declassified. It's the law.
Yeah. Would you say that we overclassify?
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. I would be surprised to hear anybody in the know. Yeah.
Which is the irony when you go through classification 101.
Yeah.
That's the number one rule that they instill in you.
Yeah.
And yet we have overclassification.
Yeah, so hopefully there's a pathway. Everybody, let's see if we can coalesce and get this done.
Right. share your stories. Yes.
Figure out a way to declassify those mission reports and figure out what went down.
Kind of want to get into the relationship of the A-10 pilot to the soldiers on the ground. You said earlier that you had been part of that documentary, The Guys on the Ground.
Yep.
And you actually you were cut out of it because of the way that you said something.
Yeah.
Well, this is uncensored
okay.
Here. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that relationship that you as pilots have, and why do they accept you guys?
Yeah, okay, so fourth deployment, I was a singleton deployed. I didn't deploy with the whole unit like I had on the Bulldog deployments. I was attached to the 303rd Fighter Squadron out of Kansas City. So the KC Hogs, these guys are complete badasses. They had the top of the line equipment. It was not an active duty squadron, it was a guard unit. Now it was a TFI, so it had a couple active duty guys, but it was primarily a guard unit. So they had the best equipment, they had better radios, they had one of the first units to get helmet mounted queuing. So we were C model with the helmet mounted queuing, the next level targeting pods, the next level radios. It was the most capable A-10 platform out there at the time. So I'll tell a little bit about the difference between my first deployment to the last one, then I'll get into the Grunts in the Sky documentary that applied to this last deployment. I always tell people, flying the A-10 has always been a training environment that gets you focused on the 18-year-old with the rifle down there. That's what close air support is. We don't shoot the good guys. We effectively and quickly kill the bad guys and no longer allow them to threaten the dudes on the ground. That's what we are born and bred to do as an A-10 guy. And I took that very seriously to the max of my slow brain capability. I did the best I could. A models, 2004, close air support. You show up on station, you've got 4 stacks of paper maps on the dash that when you get tasked, you got, hey, 2, find which map it is. It's packet 3, number 5, So showing up to bombs on target in the A model during that era, no data link, no helmet mounted queuing, about 10 minutes from arrival to bombs on target, you're doing okay. In the C model 2014, helmet mounted queuing, data link, we're able to talk to everybody in theater whenever. If you don't have bombs on target in about 30 seconds, if you've got good comm on the way in, if you got any drive at all, if you don't have bombs on target in 30 seconds, you're fucking up. So the efficiency of the killing machine that happened from 2004 to 2014 and how we managed laying waste to stuff in the C model A-10 is pretty spectacular. And I got to deploy and employ the whole spectrum. So I feel like I hit the sweet spot with my career with timing. Timing's everything. I got to see the whole spectrum there. I was very lucky to work with the 303rd. They were going through a moment of uncertainty right then because Congress was trying to retire the A-10 yet again during that time frame, and there was a big backlash with the guys on the ground. So this combat camera group that was deployed at the same time that we were out there in 2014, they're out there with the Army guys, with the JTACs, the Joint Terminal Attack Controllers. A JTAC is a guy who's an Air Force guy that goes and hangs out with the Army units that are traveling around doing their thing that Army does on the ground, the guys that we're supporting. They have a radio on their back, and they call in when they get in a fight. They get on the radio and say, "Hey, A-10, there's the bad guy. Here's his grid. I'm the good guy. Don't fucking shoot me. Shoot them. Go." That's kind of the layman's term of what a JTAC, Joint Terminal Attack Controller, does. He's the guy that gives you the clearance as the airplane to drop weapons. Make sure you don't hit good guys and make sure the bad guys go away. So those JTACs have the combat camera guys embedded with them, and they get the idea, hey, you know, this A-10 retirement is bullshit, and let's do a Save the A-10 video. 303rd are a bunch of badasses. They said they can help us out with making videos and stuff, so they put this thing together and they make the first cut, and it was kind of embarrassing. I remember walking into the building after the guys showed the first cut, and I had a scene in there where when I showed him into the room, the reaction of the guys was, Jesus Christ, Vince, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're a psycho. You're a psycho, man. What's wrong with you? No, it was, what I said, I think, was, I don't have a problem sleeping at night if I had to kill a lot of people, because those guys on the ground were trying to kill my brother, that 18-year-old with the rifle. And so that sounded a little bit callous, a little bit cold, but that's the truth of the matter. That's where my mind sat. But that did not, this is where this interview is different than that one. I still felt the same way at the time, but I did not feel free to say it. That the other half of what we do out there, that time-sensitive targeting, that airborne assassin role, the high-value target stuff, I did have a problem sleeping at night after executing one of those, and still do. So that stuff, unfortunately, that was the the bit that lasted in that first cut. The second cut of the Save the Hog video did not include that clip, and I'm grateful for that. So most of the consumption of the Grunts in the Sky video was without that clip of me talking about that. So so that's the whole story. That's the background of that video and how I felt about it. But yeah, it was great as an A-10 guy. One other piece of this whole thing, that combat camera group that was bouncing around between the Army and the 303rd and those guys doing the videos and splicing all that stuff together and making that video, kind of illustrated how Army guys and units that were being supported by A-10 units that were deployed downrange would travel to Bagram to meet the guys. We would know the dude's name by call sign. I would know what the guy's name was per the call sign that I'm hearing on the radio, and I just had, dinner at the chow hall with him last week or whatever, and so we build rapport, we know who we're talking to, and it's more than just a voice. It's a dude we know. So there's a lot of that type of closeness that develops with A-10 unit. I don't know if that develops at other units. I'm not sure, but I did experience it because we were in an A-10 unit. So that may be something that's unique. It may not be. I'm not sure.
So, let's see. Do you have any other stories of when you did have to, you listen to that guy on the radio who you had chat with, and you hear that call for support, and I imagine that adds an emotional part to hey, we need to get warheads and foreheads ASAP because I know that guy, those are my grunts.
Yeah. Well, no, I never actually. Most of the ones that I recognized were like just nothing was going on. That's the majority of what the missions that we do. There wasn't much going on a lot of times. I really can't say that any of the guys that we met there. Don't get me wrong. Other guys in the unit actually responded to stuff where the guys that I had met were involved in, but it never timed out where I was one of those guys. So it was usually some of the biggest fighting was like Black Ops dudes at night. That was some shit that I'm watching from the sky and participating in. So the big Army JTAC guys and the ones that traveled up to Bagram a lot were never involved in something that I was feeling their emotion and getting emotionally involved because I know them personally. Yeah. That never happened to me.
Was there an emotional aspect of your mission? How would you, if it was, how would you, try to turn that off while you're on mission and then, turn it back on? What was that like?
I think there's 3 different ways that I can respond to that about different places of the emotion. So yes, there's a lot of emotion that goes on. When things are boring and little shit's messing up, I would get emotional. I would get pissed off. Flying the jet, if something's broke on the jet, my tanker decided to leave, my data link breaks, radio stopped working, something like that. Bad weather. I'm trying to get down here and connect with the JTAC and things are fighting me. That's emotional. I get angry about that, hearing the emotion on the JTAC or the guy on the radio, that one's a little bit different. But when I hear that emotion develop and build, that's when it dials me right back into my training and I go, it's full stoic. It's like, what's the job? I got to nail this because I go back to extra calm with my voice. So what he hears over the radio is someone who's confident, calm, collected, deliberate, and trying to be efficient with communication so that we don't lose an opportunity to keep him going.
I heard I had an instructor tell me one time, you'll be stressed out, but the goal is to turn those butterflies, right, and put them into formation, so that your butterflies are flying in formation.
Yeah, it elevates.
Channel that stress.
Yeah, right? It elevates your frequency in your body, but you use it and channel it to continue your mission. Yep.
I went on your website yesterday and I was reading, you had one post from a couple of years ago, and it was you were doing Overwatch and then
Was that the Danger Close story?
I'm not sure if it's a Danger Close. It was one where your wingman had engine trouble. Oh no, he had a gun malfunction.
Yeah, that's the Danger Close. That's the Danger Close story on the website. Yeah. So this was the 303rd deployment, my last deployment, and we're down at the Dragon's Back. It's a place in Afghanistan just southwest of Kabul, just west of one of the main FOBs south of Kabul there, and there's known Taliban checkpoints that operate there frequently. So the guys from that nearest FOB commonly put convoys out and try to kick up action with the known Taliban in the area. And this is the MO for this support request that they put up. It was a recurring support request for their weekly or every couple of days convoy to contact. And this one definitely made contact, and they ended up getting kind of an ambush from multiple points at a choke point in some tree lines. And yeah, this was, I'm lead in a 2-ship of A-10s, and JTAC starts calling out friendly locations, and I'm not going to tell it as well as I wrote it. I mean, it's been so many years, dude.
So go to the website. What's your website?
I'm not sure which one it's on. It's either, it's, yeah.
I'll have a link to your website.
Get Better Every Day with Snapper, maybe? Or maybe it's therealsnapper.com. I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's one. Like, it's the first story on there.
Yeah. Yeah, so the short part of it, the short story of it is there's definite emotion on the radio. These guys are getting effective fire hitting their vehicles, and so he's calling in really close attacks. It's danger close. These guys are really close on the tree lines, both sides of the convoy. And they start marking it with smoke. So I don't know if they got the little grenade, M16 with a grenade launcher underneath it or whatever they're doing. I don't know what the weapon's called.
I don't either.
So they got their rifle with the grenade launcher on. They put some smoke in there. I'm like, all right, pop smoke for the enemy location. So they pop smoke. I'm talking back and forth with JTAC. I go, all right, here's the fighter to fighter. The fighter to fighter is me and my wingman are going to do X. So me as a flight lead, I say we're going to be shooters, rockets, guns. So that means I'm going to roll in. I'm going to use Willie Pete, a white phosphorus rocket, to create a smoke plume. I'm going to use 2 of them, and it's going to make a stick length that the JTAC can look at and go, okay, go from first impact to the second impact, go 50 meters west, that's your target. It gives you a way to kind of reference the actual target. Or perfect hit, first smoke, hit first smoke, or hit the southern smoke, whatever. 2 is going to do guns on the correction from the JTAC, from my smoke marks. And we're not danger close yet. We're 1 tree line over, but the first pass on my wingman, he goes to, there's 2 detents in the A-10 gun trigger system. So on the stick, no, I don't have a stick with me. 1 detent, 1 click, the airplane, whatever you have on the HUD that's looking through the HUD onto the ground, it takes that gun cross spot, and if you have good elevation data, which you should, that first detent will stick that gun cross on the ground and keep it steady. It'll move the flight control so that that stays where it is. You can kind of use rudders or kind of push through it just to make a minor adjustment, but then once you know you're where you want to be, pull it to the second detent on that gun trigger, and the 7-barrel Gatling gun roars to life and decimates what's under that pipper. So, the gun cross. So when he did that, when he got to the second detent, he got a generator blew up. It sent trons through the jet. The precision attitude control quit, and the jet starts bucking. But he's still got his hand on the trigger. He's got his finger on the trigger still, just for a little bit. It takes a second to get 70 rounds out. So we get a good number of rounds going out without precision attitude control engaged. And we're close enough for that to make me real nervous. I see this happening, and I'm like, what's this next fucking radio call gonna sound like? I'm thinking maybe we hit some good guys. Luckily, we didn't. It was a good radio call. Good hits, do it again. And then my wingman's like, I'm all fucked up, this jet's, I don't even know what's going on. I'm like, climb, get out of my way. And so from that point on, it's just, I sent him home. So it's just me with these guys to finish it off. And so I ended up shooting 700-800 rounds of 30 millimeter, and number of rockets to continue. And here's where it got funky. The JTAC tasks another guy as they're moving now to try to break contact and blast through this ambush. He tasks another guy to use smoke, and he's using a different color smoke, and he's using a different method. The way it first comes across is that he's going to do the same thing the first guy did, launch it to the enemy position. And what the dude actually does, me and the JTAC, I think, believe that he's going to mark the enemy position with smoke. This time it is danger close, and we're talking 40, 50 meters of separation between good guys and bad guys. And through the development of my, just like the awareness of where the convoy was and where the trees were, as I rolled in on this one, this last one, something didn't feel right. And I'm looking at the smoke and I'm like, I'm not shooting that. And I go back around, take another minute and a half, 2 minutes to clarify, and the dude marked friendlies when we had both intended on him marking the bad guy. So I attribute that to training, whatever it was, just somebody in my A-10 training up to that point had said, if it doesn't feel right, don't fucking do it. And don't get your fangs through the floor, as they say, where you're just, I want to do this, you know, I want to shoot so bad. And I was very glad that I didn't shoot. We cleared it up, and then the next pass, he was marking the bad guys instead of the friendly position, and no friendlies were hurt that day. They blew through, and no casualties. So that one was pretty slick.
That's
yeah.
Danger close.
Yeah.
But that's also like, I mean, danger close for you. I mean, that's I mean, yeah, terrible.
Yeah. So that was one of my most memorable missions. Yeah.
So, what's the future hold for close air support? Obviously, the A-10 is slotted to be retired.
Yeah.
They keep sending them to the boneyard one after another.
Yeah.
On my squadron back home, we're getting F-16s. So, you know, the one of the things about the A-10 is its ability to loiter for, you know, multiple hours.
Yeah.
Right. So F-16 can't do that.
Right.
Nobody else can do that. So how do you perceive that's going to change not only the close air support, but also your search and rescue?
Yeah.
Right. What do you, from your experience?
Well, that's really a complex solution. I think there will never be a tool that is the same as the A-10. The A-10 cannot last forever. It sucks that it's gone away. I think we could have made it last a lot longer, like the B-52. There has to be an end at some point. I don't agree that it should be now. I just attended the Bulldogs inactivation ceremony a month and a half ago. So that was kind of bittersweet to see that unit that I deployed with a couple times go away, be inactivated. The future of close air support, I hope there's going to be there's been some rumors that there's going to be an A-10 unit that is kind of behind the door, that's going to be a special operations support unit. There may be zero truth to this at all, but I'm hoping that we do keep a core of A-10 badassery out there to continue to be the most efficient way to end the lives of bad people across the globe. So I hope they keep that unit. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll get rid of all of them. That to me would be a big part of keeping close air support alive, if they do keep a core of one special operations A-10 unit supporting SOF. The conventional close air support ticket is again being argued away because of 6th generation, 5th generation, whatever they want to call it, they think that warfare is going away from close air support, but we've learned this lesson before. It never does, especially when we're doing the type of wars that we do. No country wants to really escalate into total war anymore, so it becomes a low grade where
proxy wars,
close air support's gonna freaking happen.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of argument allowed for stuff like A-29 and those type of things, carrying the torch for permissive environments. I think the A-29 would have been, you know, decent in Afghanistan because there's no surface-to-air threat.
Permissive meaning that there's no anti-air.
Yeah.
There's no air defense in
Yep.
the environment.
Yep. There's no air-to-air threat. There's no surface-to-air threat. You can go out there and do close air support without having to do a whole lot of defense or fighting on your way in or out. And that's what those single-engine turboprops could be a great replacement at a lower cost than an A-10 unit. There's pluses and minuses to all that, and people that know a lot more of the details about A-29 would probably be able to flesh that out quite a bit more, but I see that being a mitigation to the loss of the A-10 is something like the light attack platforms that are out there. Now the air tractor has been purchased and acquired. That's a crop duster that's now up armored that has a bunch of shit on it. Terrible for close air support though. Low wing cockpit is right where you can't see shit underneath you. It's like the opposite visibility of the A-10. So,
Yeah, I think it'll be answered by, you know, what's the next conflict.
what kind of fight we get in?
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna answer itself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess it's an open-ended question. You know, it's not going to be answered right now.
Yep.
I think we can kind of go into kind of wrap this up by going into you were a flight commander. Talking a little bit about leadership and how you learned how to be a leader, and some, I guess, leadership advice you can give to NCOs and you know, other.
Man, that is such a huge topic. That is like
I know.
so broad. Yeah. To me, leadership, it has to be genuine. You have to be coming from a place of well-held views and philosophy. I think you've got to have something to stand for. You should at least strive to develop a framework if you're going to be in a leadership position of where you stand on things that matter to the people that are under you. You can't just go in there and wing it and be inconsistent. You've got to establish your, if you want to put it in political terms, platform. What do you stand for? What kind of person are you going to be? What kind of things are you going to emulate? Because you've got to be consistent and you've got to really live it. To become a true leader, you've got to walk the walk. And it becomes real clear real fast when it's a leader who's just singing platitudes and, you know, saying the right words, but, you know, the next thing he does is step contrary to what he just told you to be, you know, and that's not a leader. So to be a true leader, you have to know what you stand for and act that way and make it visible. If you want to be a good, powerful leader that wants to spread this philosophy around that you've got to be visible and have people see you acting that way. So that's pretty unspecific, but I think that generally covers my thoughts on leadership. I enjoy being a flight commander and trying to figure out how to wrangle guys that were motivated by different things than my at least self-perceived altruistic motives. You know, they were maybe, from my point of view, little bit more self-motivated than, you know, the good of the whole of the company. I want my flight to operate well. I want everybody in there to be the best pilot they can be, and that's what I mean by the company. I'm not talking about Big Blue or trying to, you know, ride on the coattails of some executive leader. I retired as a major. I always scoffed rank. It was about being true. And I don't want to say scoffed rank as if I was flippant or disrespectful to people, my superiors, but they had to prove it to me that they were worth their shit, you know, or I would say, okay, copy. You know, and so one of the things that I did to check what kind of leader they were, you know, the lore of Robin Olds and the mustache.
No, please.
Okay,
please
Robin
explain.
Olds is one of the praised and lauded leaders of the Air Force history. He was an F-4 pilot. He was a triple ace. He flew in World War II. Vietnam, he was an ace multiple times. So in Vietnam, he was a wing commander at Ubon, Thailand, and he wore a way out of rigs mustache. And that has become the origins of mustache march in the Air Force. It's kind of been co-opted by non-fighter pilots. So I needed to take it a step further to see who was gonna, you had to get into something that was not widely accepted to figure out who was gonna lose their shit over stuff that doesn't matter. So I would wear bald head, and I wish I had my sideburns around, but it would be sideburns from the top of my ears all the way down to the bottom of my ear hole, just within regs, like just these patches of sideburns on my head. You'd probably see pictures of that, and if you look at my website, there's probably gonna be something like that. And you could see like the senior enlisted at Davis Monthan had meetings about my fucking sideburns. I loved it. I'm like, you guys can chomp on this all you want. It's within the regs. The reg says it can't be faddish. Let's define the word fad. There's going to be a whole bunch of people doing something for style. I'm the only motherfucker doing this, so it's not a fad. So you can get over it. So I could identify someone who was stuck on shit that didn't matter by their reaction to my sideburns. So I wanted people to focus on things like being a good person, being good to the people around them, being good at their job, not being mean to people. We can do things well without being mean, and those are the type of things that I would strive to do as a leader.
So to close this out, I kind of want to get into the veterans affairs, and we can kind of tie this back into one of our first things in our conversation about pilots and the air assassin, and I think, and you know, on a broader sense, you know, this gets into, it could get into politics. Obviously, I try to keep politics out of what I talk about, but there's still, you know, there's still inherent issues and inherent problems with the establishment in the military, right? And so I think what's your, I guess let's kind of narrow it down to your experience from a pilot's perspective. Okay. With you know, how do you deal with having done that air assassin role? How should other pilots, do you have advice for them, and even tie that into veterans, the grunts on the ground, like how do they deal with PTSD?
Yeah. So the broad stroke on this is, when we go do these wars, we are going to be asked to do awful things. We're going to kill, maim, we're going to see bodies torn apart, we're going to see the fear of death, and then the death happen, and we're going to see the family members agonize over what's happening. That's what a guy who gets in a firefight on the ground is potentially going to see in the worst case. Interestingly, most platforms don't get to see much of that. But in the A-10, when I'm using the gun, I get to see it. An example was one of these Airborne Assassin ones was 2 guys walking down a dirt road. I'm on the radio with the control, he's like 80 clicks away. One of them goes off the dirt road to go take a shit. I call it the lucky shit. I'm like, which one am I tracking? He goes, stick with the one on the road. No fucking way he knows which one's which. There's no way. And then he goes, okay, cleared out, take him out. The dude that took the lucky shit lived, but the guy that he said go, I was within 3/4 of a mile with my targeting pod on this guy when I sent 150 rounds of 30 millimeter high explosive through his body. And then I come back around, my number 2 misses like by 30 meters, completely missed. I'm laughing because it was the weapons officer of the squadron, and
should have been better.
He should have hit. Maybe he missed delivery. I don't know. I come back around, and I've got like straight up great targeting pod video of this dude in pieces, bleeding out on the gravel road, and this video is being sent to the guy that's talking to me, and he goes, take another pass. And I'm like, say again? Yeah, I want you to make sure he's dead. So, all right, you're the boss, bro. He's done, but I'll do another pass. So to me, stuff like that kind of fucks with your mind. I got no backstory on this dude. I don't know if the bad guy was the one over there taking shit. I guarantee that the dude controlling this doesn't know. I mean, in my own mind, I say I guarantee, but I can't guarantee because I don't know if he knew or not. Maybe he did. I doubt it. So what was the value of doing that? He's somewhere that is so separated from any American, in theater or not, especially any American in the United States. Is there a chance that that dude's going to have any impact on any one American person in the CONUS? 0%. No chance. But I've been called upon to take him out. So, yeah, that stuff. There's a number of other stories along those lines for me. So it brings it back to what's the worth of us being there in the first place? And I think we are in an era right now where the close hold of propaganda and the ability for a government to lie to its people is diminishing. And the lack of thorough and legitimate purpose behind what we've been asked to do as a military is becoming more and more clear. The good thing here is this is where everybody gets doom and gloom. This is where everybody gets depressed. It sounds awful. America sucks. No, America doesn't suck. The United States is the greatest country in the world. We have problems because of the ebb and flow of society, but we have great people in this country who have fantastic intentions, who are very smart, who will be able to solve this problem of how do we deal with our massively changing information flow, our massively changing way we should do business to create the best society that we can under the construct of the Constitution that we vowed, that we swore an oath to support and defend. And so I have high hopes, and I'm not doom and gloom like some other people kind of make it feel. I have high hopes that we will find those really smart, really dedicated Americans that feel as strongly about the Constitution that I do. They may be smarter than me, probably a lot smarter than me, that can help coalesce with me and move forward into the next 20 years to make this shit better. We can identify the problems. We have fantastic tools now within all the technological things that are advancing. We can leverage those things in such a way that is a positive outcome versus this garbage that is so pervasive and easily seen, how internet search is garbage. You know, capitalism seems to be so corrupted that it's awful. Well, we can counter that. We can do better things. We can use our knowledge for good. And to those guys who have been tasked in the last 20 years, or even now, in the really like behind the curtain tasks that are going on now in Africa and stuff, we don't talk about it. There are people still killing folks around the globe in the name of the United States for causes that we know nothing about, or is not socialized by any of the mass media. You have to dig to find it. We can do better than that. We should do better than that. We should hold our civilian leaders to account to ensure that they are not overclassifying, that they are presenting their argument in a exhaustive manner. You better prove to me why we're going to do this stuff. I'm very against a poorly planned and poor reason to go to war. All those guys that were in the GWAT over the last 20 years, I will say this is tough because I don't believe we were there for a good reason. That's what makes it tough for me. Our initial idea was good, but the rest of it kind of became a self-perpetuating system, the self-licking ice cream cone. The fact that we were there was the reason we were getting rocketed, which was the reason we were going out to do base defense and engage and get shot and shoot other people. So if we weren't there, none of that engagement would have happened. So it's like, you know, if they could have just told us the truth, and here's my thought on Afghanistan. If they could have just said, hey, we need a presence out there to counter Iran and Russia. We need to put a whole bunch of shit out there to be right next to China, to influence Russia, and to be able to be looking at Iran. Why is that classified? Don't make that classified. It's not because Afghanistan's a threat to the United States, which you're fucking shoving down every grunt's throat. You know, we're there to beat up the Taliban. What are they going to do to an American? They're deep in the mountains of Afghanistan. They're doing nothing. They have no threat to us. Prove the threat or tell the truth. We're there as a strategic placement. And that being said, the withdrawal from that strategic placement was really, really bad. I wrote that date on the calendar where the C-17 was dropping people off the external when we exited Afghanistan. It was absolutely the most disgraceful way to get out of there.
What were you thinking when you were seeing that happen?
I was thinking, how could we go so far away from logic in how we removed ourselves from there? How could the leadership make this decision? It was a decision made because it's too hard to do it right. It's too costly one way or another. It's going to cost too much money. It's going to take too much time. Invalid arguments. How should we exit that place? And it shouldn't be based on how are we going to prop up the government in that place. That's not the question. It's how do we manage the equipment, the people, the security of our environment, doing what they wanted us to focus on being OPSEC, secure. Don't, give any stuff to the enemy. Watch out what you're doing with your papers and your computer. The amount of shit that was left behind back there, full airplanes. It makes it like the leaders get to go, hey, you need to stop being so bad at this. Do better, and then, I can do
get
it.
in trouble if
Yeah.
you don't turn in your parka after your enlistment.
Yeah, it's just such a farce.
They'll leave billions of dollars of equipment.
Yeah, and that's just one aspect of it. There's tons of other angles that we could talk for hours on the exit of Afghanistan, but that one hurts me. That one's rough. So I'm glad we left, but damn, we could have done that better.
So what do you do? Just to close this out. What do you do to process that to help get? You're talking about working to try to get answers.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're working on right now?
I haven't got any project. This is just me thinking, man. I would love to understand the process by which we go in and declassify a MISREP. I think that could be cathartic for a lot of folks to really get a little bit more understanding. If there's no reason to have it classified, if the apparatus is available, if there's a way to do it, if we can shift our perspective on classification, how we do it, open up the aperture on Afghanistan. Hopefully that could be some catharsis for guys like me who have this black hole of knowledge, and I know what I did, but I don't know why. And what I am worried about is that the answer is going to be no, we can't declassify because it's just going to be embarrassing, and that seems wrong. So
well, that is wrong. That's actually against the law.
Yeah.
that is literally in the, I don't know what regulation. That's literally one of the aspects is declassification cannot be based on embarrassment.
Yeah.
It's literally word for word.
Yeah. Yes. Well, thankfully, I'm glad you know that. I didn't know that. I am so ignorant to this declassification process. I think that could help. And what I would say to the guys who are hurting, the guys that have moments where you hear a story on a podcast or you hear something random that brings that moment back into your head, just realize that life is flowing like a stream, going different turns. It's going to get better. This will turn the other way again, and surround yourself with people who are, if you've got loving family or friends, you've got to do a lot of work yourself. You've got to become non-destructive in your reactions to things. To me, I thank my mom for instilling in me my initial reaction to something that hurts, that is I really fucked up, or this sucks, or this is going to be really hard. When I get challenged, I think, all right, I'm getting chin up, shoulders back, and I'm going to step right into this thing, and I'm going to push into this challenge, and I'm going to see how it sharpens me, because it's going to take something off of me, but I'm going to get better on the other side. So that's how I approach it, and I think that's maybe a good element for guys to get through these difficult things. When they come up, you can't control when it comes up. I have times where I'm like, man, I wish I wasn't thinking about taking out that whole fucking family under that set of trees over there in Afghanistan, but here I am thinking about it. What's this doing for me right now? So it's tough. And I'm thankful for you being here, because this is the most I've brought out on it. And I think 10 years later, whatever it's been, I'm glad that my kids, I haven't told these stories to my kids at all, but they'll get to see it on a video. And I think that's important. They'll get to know who I am a little bit. Another element of this for other guys watching is, it's okay to have the stories. You didn't do anything wrong by doing what your country asked you to do. You did what you had to do. So let's figure out how to not have our country do this stuff this way anymore. That's what gives me the positive into the future outlook, is I think we can bring people together and hopefully not do this again for another 20-year war that we have veteran suicide left and right.
I think what you said was important about finding someone, talking to someone, finding a way to, I think, get it out there. I think bringing it into the light of day will help, because other people will see, oh, hey, I'm not the only one dealing with this.
Yeah. I want to say, watch out for bringing it to the light of day just for the sake of bringing it out. You don't need to let it define you. You've got to talk about what happened, but it's something that happened to you. It's not who you are. So don't ball up and continue to circle around with that. I say hello to that family I blew up every so often, but then they go away again, and I expect them to come back and revisit. But I move on with my life, and I don't get wrapped up, and I don't seek out bringing it out into the open so I can churn on it some more. I think that can get people into a bad loop, but don't push it away when it happens. So that, I think, is the healthy balance. You gotta let it arrive, talk to it a little bit, figure something out about it, and then go, okay, it's time for me to go eat dinner with my kids.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be done with this for now.
Yeah, we're all human.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing and kind of being open about that.
Hey, it's been good, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll be able to see something come out here pretty soon. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. All right. What's you don't remember your website, but do you have anything you want to shout out? You have a podcast. It's kind of in pause right now.
Let's see. The Combat Story podcast was the one that I did a couple years back, where I've got some more of that story out there. I kind of probably tell some of the same stuff, so you don't want to hear me talk all that stuff again. But if you want to hear the story told a little bit better, he's got it broke up into chapters, and you can go into that one. And he's got a bunch of dudes on that podcast that are like way more impressive than my resume. So I don't have much to shout out for myself, but maybe in the future I'll get there.
Cool. All right.
Appreciate it, brother.
Okay, it's a wrap.
Yep.
Thanks, man.